Jagdish Salank lived with his elder brother Kanchan Salank's family in flat No. 9 of Yashwant apartment, located right in front of Durga Temple in the Vitalwadi area of Kalyan town, Maharashtra. Jagdish worked at a company and was married to a beautiful and ambitious woman, Vishali Thakar. After marriage, Jagdish moved out of his brother's house and rented a flat in the same society, where he lived with his wife, Vishali. However, on the night of March 6, 2019, at around 11 p.m., Vishali called her maternal uncle, Nandlal, crying. She said, "Uncle, there has been a huge robbery at our house, and the miscreants have also killed Jagdish." Vishali's voice was filled with panic, and she begged Nandlal to come over quickly. Nandlal, shocked by the news, calmed her down and assured her that he would reach her home immediately. Since Nandlal's house was near Kanchan Salank's, he also informed Kanchan about the incident. Kanchan, along with Nandlal, rushed to the scene, and soon, the news spread across the area. A crowd of neighbors, relatives, and acquaintances gathered outside the house. When they peered inside, they saw Jagdish lying on the bed, and the house was in disarray. His wife, Vishali, was crying loudly, clutching her husband's body. Upon seeing the body, Kanchan and Nandlal, with the help of neighbors, managed to separate Vishali from Jagdish and took her in an auto to a nearby clinic. The doctors advised them to take her to another hospital. When they reached Rukminibai Hospital, the doctors declared Jagdish dead and informed the police about the incident. The police inspected the crime scene and sent the body for post-mortem. After a thorough investigation of the scene, the police suspected that it wasn't a robbery. There were marks on the body that suggested the incident was a murder rather than a theft. The police deepened their investigation, realizing that there might be more connections to Jagdish Salank's murder. What was initially thought to be a robbery soon revealed itself to be something completely different. As the police delved deeper into the case, the mystery behind Jagdish Salank's murder slowly started to unfold, and the most significant lead pointed to his wife, Vishali Thakar. When the police interrogated Vishali, she told her version of the story. She said that there were no vegetables at home, so she had called her husband, Jagdish, to remind him. However, he forgot to bring vegetables and returned empty-handed. As a result, Vishali went to the market herself. But when she came back home, she found the house in disarray, with everything scattered, and her husband lying unconscious. In panic, Vishali immediately called Nandlal, Jagdish's maternal uncle, and shared the information. The case became even more complicated when the post-mortem report came in. The report intensified the police's suspicion towards Vishali. The investigation revealed that this was no ordinary robbery but a planned conspiracy. Vishali's statement seemed suspicious, and the police placed her under scrutiny. Further questioning of Jagdish's family revealed that Vishali and Jagdish's marriage had not been entirely genuine. According to the family, Vishali had initially refused to marry Jagdish twice, but under pressure from her family, she had reluctantly agreed to marry him. Taking all these facts into account, the police questioned Vishali once again. At first, she tried to avoid the questions, but eventually, she couldn't escape the truth and finally confessed to her crime. The big question now was why Vishali brutally murdered her husband, Jagdish. Vishali's action was nothing less than a conspiracy, and to understand the truth behind this case, we need to know some important aspects of Jagdish's life. Jagdish Salank was a smart and sensible young man. He was originally from Reva Taluka in Jalgan district, Maharashtra. Jagdish's father, Gokul Salank, was a simple man who owned some land in the village and ran a hair-cutting shop in Reva. Gokul had 2 sons. The elder son, Kanchan Salank, was married and lived with his family in Kalyan, while the younger son, Jagdish, decided to move to the city in search of a better future. Jagdish had completed his education but felt disconnected from village life. He was looking for a new life in the city, so he insisted on living in the city despite his family's wishes. He moved in with his elder brother Kanchan and his sister-in-law and soon landed a job at a pharmaceutical company in Ambernath. As Jagdish started his career, his family began thinking about his marriage. Gokul informed relatives and acquaintances that his younger son was now eligible for marriage. That's when the proposal from the Thakar family in Malad came up. Vishali Thakur was a beautiful 22-year-old girl, the only child in her family. Her mother and a brother, Satish Thakur, were her immediate family. Satish was the breadwinner, and due to this responsibility, Vishali had not married until then. Her entire world revolved around her brother and mother. However, under family pressure, Vishali had to accept the idea of marriage. Vishali and Jagdish got married, but after the wedding, Vishali was not happy. She could not fully accept Jagdish as her life partner. There was a gap between them, and this gap slowly widened over time. For Vishali, this marriage became a compromise that she had accepted under family pressure, not by her own choice. After all this came to light, the police interrogated Vishali once again, and this time, she confessed to the truth. The reason behind Jagdish's murder was her mental state and the pressure from her family. Vishali's mental balance had deteriorated, and she took the horrifying step of killing her husband. Vishali Thakur was as charming and cheerful as she was beautiful. Her smile had a special attraction that could draw anyone towards her. This is why when she first met Jagdish Salank, he liked her instantly. She was a girl who could impress anyone with her open heart and smile. Vishali's family also approved of the relationship. Furthermore, there was already an old family connection between the two families, which made the relationship even stronger. The Thakur family thought it was a great opportunity and wanted to get the relationship approved as quickly as possible. Both families decided on the engagement date and planned the wedding. In today's times, people often consider engagement as half a marriage, after which the couple gets a chance to meet and talk to each other more openly and understand each other better. This is exactly what happened with Vishali and Jagdish. After the engagement, they began meeting and talking, and this continued for about 6 months. During this time, while Jagdish had completely accepted Vishali as a part of his life and was very happy about the marriage, Vishali, on the other hand, was dreaming of something else. She gradually started getting bored of Jagdish. Vishali didn't want the simple, straightforward guy who would always obey her and follow her every command. She wanted a smart, attractive, and charming husband who could fulfill her every desire and be her ideal. So, just 20 days before the wedding, she called Jagdish and asked him to meet her at Dada railway station in Mumbai. She sounded very sad over the phone, and when they met, she said to him, "I don't want to marry you. Our thoughts are completely different. Even if we get married, we'll never be happy. I think we should separate." This statement from Vishali shocked Jagdish to the core. He had completely believed in the relationship, and all the wedding preparations had already been made. The wedding date had been fixed, and invitations had already been sent out to relatives. Jagdish couldn't understand why Vishali suddenly made such a decision. He tried to convince her, but she wouldn't listen. Then Vishali threatened, "If you pressure me about this wedding, I will commit suicide. And if you force me into marriage, I will poison myself and end my life." Hearing this, Jagdish was terrified. He knew that if something like this happened, he would feel guilty too. After hearing all this, Jagdish confided in his family about the entire story. When Vishali's family got to know about this, they too became strict. They confronted Vishali and told her that she shouldn't have done this. Under family pressure, Vishali admitted her mistake and agreed to marry Jagdish. But now, Jagdish's family could not trust Vishali. They had realized that there was something amiss in her intentions, and they decided that if Vishali ever took any wrong steps in the future, she would be fully responsible for it. To ensure this, Jagdish's family made Vishali and her family sign a separate guarantee and apology letter, so there would be no disputes in the future. Despite all these events, Vishali still felt conflicted. She was questioning why she had ever considered Jagdish as her life partner. She knew she could never see Jagdish as an ideal husband, and this situation made her feel very uncomfortable. Vishali had a deep sense of dissatisfaction within herself, which she couldn't openly express. She felt that this marriage was a compromise, and because of that, she couldn't fully connect with Jagdish. Jagdish was ready to be the perfect and loving husband, but Vishali's interests lay elsewhere. She didn't want to sacrifice her dreams and desires for this marriage. Although Jagdish tried to understand Vishali's heart and hoped to avoid any bitterness between them, in reality, this was just Jagdish's dream, which was slowly falling apart. Vishali had something unspoken in her heart, which she couldn't express to either Jagdish or her family. This internal tension gradually turned into a bigger problem, and a few months after their marriage, the true nature of their relationship started to come to light. Vishali's confusion, the pressure from her family, and her disagreement with Jagdish became the reason for this entire turn of events. And this marriage eventually became just a legal bond, while a deep rift grew between their hearts. The marriage between Vishali Thakar and Jagdish Salang had become a matter of concern for both families. Initially, both families were happy and hopeful about this relationship, but over time, the situation started to change. Vishali's inner turmoil was increasing. She began thinking more about her personal life and freedom than her marriage. Vishali had always been an independent-minded girl. Even after the marriage, she wanted to focus on her career, but due to family pressure and the scrutiny of society, she had kept this from Jagdish. Just a few days before the wedding, she met Jagdish again and invited him to a hotel. There, she repeated the same old things, saying, "I don't want to get married so soon. I need to complete my beautician course first. Please delay the wedding date until I achieve something in my career." Jagdish got very angry upon hearing this. Instead of trying to understand her, he replied in a direct and stern tone, "Why don't you tell your family about this? Why are you choosing to tell me all this?" Hearing this, Vishali's eyes were filled with a mix of anger and disappointment. Jagdish silently left, thinking that somewhere, Vishali had already changed her mind. After Jagdish left, Vishali realized that she would have to deal with this issue on her own. She spent the whole night tossing and turning, thinking about what step to take next. A dangerous thought had come to her mind, which slowly began to solidify in her mind. Meanwhile, both families were busy with the wedding preparations. Vishali's friends and relatives were all excited about the wedding celebration, especially demanding a bachelorette party. Vishali kept avoiding their requests. Then, just a few days before the wedding, Vishali threw a small party at her home, inviting only Jagdish. Seeing Jagdish at the party, he was a little happy, but he felt that Vishali was no longer the same. During the party, he began to feel somewhat alienated. On their way back home, Vishali lovingly sent him some food, but when Jagdish opened it, a strange smell came from it. The smell was so strong that he had to throw the food away. When he told Vishali about it, she cleverly admitted that she had poisoned the food. However, Jagdish had escaped unharmed this time as well. Despite this, on December 29th, Vishali and Jagdish got married in a grand ceremony. While this wedding was a cause of joy for the families and relatives, for Vishali, it was just a compromise. After the wedding, they went on a honeymoon to a hill station. Jagdish was very happy with the marriage and had forgotten all the grievances, while Vishali was completely dissatisfied with this relationship. Jagdish had pinned all his hopes and dreams on Vishali, but she had never truly been ready for this marriage. Over time, Vishali's behavior began to change further. She started fighting with Jagdish over small things, which also began to annoy his family. Eventually, Jagdish's family advised Vishali to consider living separately for some time. Under family pressure, Jagdish rented a flat in his colony, so he could live apart from Vishali. However, Vishali was unaffected by this. She just wanted her freedom. After moving into the new house, she lived according to her own wishes. She spent her days talking on the phone, and when Jagdish interrupted, she would argue with him. Jagdish couldn't understand what to do. He was struggling with the truth that the girl he had married was not willing to become a part of his life. Despite this, he never confronted Vishali directly. Every time, he suppressed his desires and remained silent, because he was still trying his best to save the relationship. But it didn't end there. Vishali didn't feel any lack of freedom. She remained completely busy with her mobile phone and friends, and saw Jagdish merely as someone she had to accept as her husband and make space for in her life. Amid all this, Jagdish's mental state was deteriorating day by day, because he knew that his love and sincerity were now going in vain. This story is of a relationship where, on one side, there was trust and love, and on the other side, betrayal and dissatisfaction. On one side was Jagdish, who wanted to save his marriage at any cost, and on the other side, Vishali, who was in search of her freedom. But would this relationship ever be right? Would Vishali and Jagdish's story move towards happiness, or would this relationship turn into another failure? This question remained unanswered. After marriage, most people try to make their life happy, but if the foundation of the relationship is unstable, can the marriage last long? This is what happened with Jagdish Salank. His marriage was only 3 months old, and now his life had reached a point where he didn't even expect it. Vishali Thoku, who was already afraid of losing her freedom after marriage, had now completely lost hope in the relationship. For her freedom, she chose a dangerous path, a path that ultimately led her behind bars. One day, when Vishali felt that she could finally escape from her husband, she took a dangerous step. That day she was quite happy, having planned her move regarding the time spent with Jagdish. As Jagdish came back from work, Vishali, after some sweet words, mixed rat poison in his food. Jagdish ate it and then started preparing to sleep. But as he lay down to sleep, he suddenly became restless. Before he could get up and go to the bathroom, Vishali tightened a nylon rope around his neck and strangled him with all her might. As soon as she was sure Jagdish was no longer alive, she immediately began her act. She called Nandlal Sauda, Jagdish's uncle, and told him something was wrong. She tried to mislead the family and the police, but this time she didn't succeed. Despite Vishali's lies and deceit, the truth eventually came out. Now the question arises, when both families already suspected that Vishali wasn't fully ready for this marriage, why did they allow the relationship to progress? Before the wedding, Vishali had threatened to poison herself, and this was taken lightly. If everyone had taken it seriously at that time, maybe this incident would never have occurred. Vishali's desire for freedom and her stubbornness to escape the marriage led to Jagdish's death. An innocent man, who had left everything behind for this marriage, was now killed in vain. The police registered a case against Vishali under Section 302, murder based on her statement, and presented her in court. The court found her guilty and sent her to jail. Friends, the purpose of sharing this incident is not to make anyone sad, but to try to give a warning. Never let self-reliance and compromise be absent in relationships. Marriage is a sacred bond, and it should be taken seriously. When we are in a relationship, it is important to understand each other's emotions, desires, and mentality. What do you think about this? Do you believe that if the families had paid attention to Vishali's behavior from the start, this incident might not have happened? Please share your opinion in the comment box and spread awareness by sharing this story. If you liked this video, please like and share it, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.